Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaskar, I'm Devdip Purkayastha from the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. Welcome to my course, Business Fundamentals for Entrepreneurs. This is module 22, starting up a social venture. But before I get into the module itself, let me quickly show you the flow of the course, especially the topics for weeks 9 to 12. In module 21, which is the previous one, I had shared about how to start up a new technology venture. And today's topic is all about how to start up a new social venture. So some of the methodologies can be common, like design thinking, to identify customer needs deeply, agile development, lean startup. Some of those methodologies can be used, but the social new venture has its own needs, methodologies, and as you'll see, support from the government. So in this module, I will talk you through the topics of what is a social business, how is it different from other businesses, and how do you plan a social business? So I'll show you a planner that you can use and the elements of a social business plan. I'll share some examples of social business opportunities, support from the government, and examples from global reports. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how can you get funding for your social ventures. So what is a social business? As the name suggests, the social business is focused on a social mission. And I had talked about social missions, United Nations, Sustainable Development Goals, etc. in an earlier module. So social businesses are focused on some of those UN SDGs and social causes. Unlike a normal business, which is set up by owners or shareholders, and the focus is on serving the customer but also maximizing the wealth or the prosperity of the shareholders or the owners, and also unlike charitable organization. A social business is not necessarily a charity-driven organization, because a charity-driven organization depends on grants and donations to do social work. It may not even develop a business model or have a revenue model or have customers. Unlike those two businesses, a social business will have customers, it will generate revenues, it will generate some profits, and most importantly, it will become self-sustaining. It will not be dependent on grants and donations, and at the same time, it will not try to maximize profits for its owners and shareholders. So let's deep dive into the three types of business. For-profit business, which I've talked a lot about in all the earlier modules. A not-for-profit business, which is typically driven by grants, donations, and then a social business. So I'm going to talk you through now a social business planner which will help you develop a social business. And what are the key elements of it? You can see it on the screen and you look at the key elements. which starts with the beneficiary profile. And we'll talk more about that. It then talks about the social business opportunity. And then slowly, like a normal business plan, it gets into what is the business model of the social entrepreneurs, who will be the customers, what will be the customer product, what is the customer pricing, and then on the supplier side, who are the suppliers, the raw material, and the cost of the raw material. And then you also have to plan what is the impact on the beneficiary and what is the impact on other stakeholders. The other stakeholders can be society at large, or it could be the planet. For example, if you want to create a social business plan in a slum area, in Bombay or Calcutta or Africa or any of the not so privileged countries, the beneficiaries will be the inhabitants of that slum or the underprivileged housing area, or the wives of the farmers, or anybody who's not so privileged to get an organized sector job. So those are the beneficiaries. Now let's say you are trying to look for an opportunity that the beneficiaries can build a business around. For example, just as an example, in a lot of temples, Hindu temples, a lot of flowers are given and offered to the gods and goddesses. Those flowers, end of the day, can either be thrown away, spoiled, wasted, or they can be put to use, such as making incense stick, because the flowers provide the incense in the agarbattis. So that's the social business opportunity, to convert offered flowers at the end of the day for a social cause. So you're serving God, but you're also serving the not so privileged humanity. Now you've identified ladies who can convert those flowers into incense sticks. So we've got the beneficiaries and the business opportunity. Now you create the business plan. And the business plan may be every day 1 ton, 1,000 kilos of flowers are being offered, because for big temples, that's what they may be getting, or 100 kilos, or 10 kilos, or 20 kilos. And the business model is to convert those flowers into incense sticks, package them, and sell them. Now, when you start selling them, then there's the customers. The customers may be a normal housewife. It could be a normal working professional. It could be any of us. We are then the customers of that beneficiary. And then there's a customer product, which in this case is the incense stick. And there's a customer price. So versus an expensive incense stick, a socially driven incense stick may be much cheaper. So that's the customer side. And then you have the supplier side. In this case, the suppliers are the temple management or the priest who give the flowers away probably free. So the cost may be zero. So that's the supply side. And then you look at the beneficiary impact. What's the beneficiary impact? Maybe all the ladies, maybe 10 ladies or 100 ladies are making this incense sticks, and they all make 100 rupees a day. So their livelihoods and lives improve. That's the beneficiary impact. But there's also other impact. Waste disposal of flowers, which can be used for fertilizers, etc., but it can also be put to good use. And then the customers who benefit because they get low-cost incense sticks. Not everybody can afford an expensive agarbatti. So that's the stakeholder impact. So this is just an example of how you can use this planner to plan a social business. Let's now deep dive into each of the elements of the social business planner. The first, of course, is a beneficiary profile. So are you looking at village village groups of ladies? Are you looking at underprivileged in slums? Are you looking at uneducated in some areas of the country? So the demographics of the beneficiary, geographies, very, very importantly, the education and the skill level. What can they do? And then, what are the aspirations and the goals? Because not every lady may want to make incense sticks out of flowers. Some of them may want to make dresses. Some may want to make shoes out of discarded tires. Some may want to make low-cost pens and pencils or paper or handicrafts. So you have to look at the aspirations goal as well. So that's the beneficiary profile. The social business opportunity is like scoping any other business opportunity. So you have to look at what is the problem that you're trying to solve. In the incense example, a lot of Hindus used incense in their houses and temples. The problem is providing low cost but good quality incense which are affordable because the ones in the market may be a bit too expensive. And then we look at what is the market size, how sustainable is it. For example, if a temple is open only 10 days a month or 1 month a year, then the flowers in this example will not be available every day. So it becomes very seasonal. So it's not a sustainable business. Also, sustainability from the point of view of helping the planet and society, the SDG goals. And then what are the growth potentials? Because more and more devotees are coming, more and more flowers are being put, then more and more incense sticks can be made. And then what's the competitive advantage versus a normal, commercially available incense stick versus the one that's coming out of a social business. So that's the top 2 boxes of a social planner. And then, of course, the third key box is the summary of the business model. What is the value proposition? Who are the customers? What is the product? How is it different, etc. Just like any other normal business model. It's a summary of the operating or the business model for the social business. And then if you start looking at the right blocks, you can deep dive into different aspects of the customers. Who are the customers? Especially, are they close by or they far away? Because a commercial organization of agarbatti can distribute the products nationally. But a social business in a village or a district or a small town or near a temple or in a hill or near a jungle, they will not be able to distribute probably nationally and put it on Amazon, Flipkart or the stores. So maybe the customers are nearby other villages. Other villages near the temple who normally may not be able to afford a commercial agarbatti, but they can afford the ones that are made within their community. And the advantage may be that the villagers in the villages near the temple may not even be shopping in urban stores or Flipkart or Amazon, which you and I may be shopping at. So there may be a ready-made customer base in the nearby villages of that temple. And then feedback in terms of is it good quality, bad quality, how to improve. Customer product. What is the product? Remember the product, and I will give you a lot of examples of products later on, especially under the government scheme. And then very importantly, the customer pricing. Social businesses will not really price for extraordinary profits. They will price for sustainability, affordability, because they are not there to make money for the owners or the shareholders. They're there to create livelihoods. If you move on, then you start looking at the supplier profile. Now the suppliers, some of it may actually be just free. For example, if you are creating products out of a forest produce, tamarind, apples, turmeric, etc., which grow in the forest, then a lot of raw material may be very low priced or even free because you're getting it from your own orchard or the village trees. But you may still need some supplies for the packaging material, the bottles or the labels or the stickers or the boxes. So you have to be careful about who are the suppliers. It may be free. For example, the flowers that are being thrown away in a temple may come free, but you may still need some packaging for the incense sticks. It may be a low cost, just a plastic wrapper or a paper wrapper, not the fancy box that you see in a high cost agarbatti, but you still need to buy the paper or the cellophane to wrap the finished agarbattis on. So that's the supply profile. Relatedly, what are the supply products? Basically the packaging material and the raw material if you're buying. So you may be making jam. The raw material like the fruits may be free because it's in your orchard or in the village orchard or in the forest nearby. We'll look at some examples in a while. But the bottle has to be defined. Is it a small bottle, big bottle? The labeling. Do you want to put a label, not put a label? You may want to buy the sugar to put in the jam, some salt, some spicing. So these are all supplier products. And you need to have the supplies and the supplier cost. So as I said, some of it may be free, some of it may be costing money. But when you're making it, you also have to do a basics of financial analysis in terms of, let's say, you have gone from handmade jam, hand-packaged jam, to buying small machinery which makes the jam. So some heating or some cauldron where the jam can be stirred and made. So some machinery may be required to scale up. That costs money. And therefore, how much do you have to produce to buy that piece of machinery? So break-even analysis and a long-term plan, just like a normal business. And then we need to look at what is the beneficiary impact. The community, the ladies, or the inhabitants of underprivileged areas, or the farmers in the off-season. What is the improvement in their livelihoods, incomes, and their lives? So if you're doing a healthcare, social business, what is the improvement in the health? If you're doing educational social business, what's the impact of education on the children or the learners? And therefore, what are the social returns? So what are the social returns of a health project or an education project? Because if you are doing an educational social business, you may have trained them to earn money. So the beneficiary has a model, but the students who are learning from the beneficiary school, and we'll look at some examples, they are going out and earning a livelihood. So that's indirect impact as well. And as I said, stakeholder impact. With that, let's get into the first reflection point. In the next 3 minutes, please reflect about a non-profit or a social business that you're aware of and try to find out who started up that not-for-profit or social business. How did they start up? And you may not find it on the internet. So next time when you're traveling or going to an underprivileged area, look around for such not-profit and social businesses. And when you go out and identify that, go and talk to whoever is working in that social business. Try to find out who the beneficiaries are, who the customers are, what the products are, what is the money that is exchanging hands from the customers to the beneficiaries who's running the social business and going out to the suppliers. So reflect for 3 minutes.